time to book a trip to the poker capital of America. I fly from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, all the way to Las Vegas, and we're already running good. I get the whole road to myself. It's pretty late when I land, and yes, somehow it's raining in the desert. The thrill of landing in Vegas hits me every single time I think about jumping into a game, but it's already 3 a.m. Eastern time. So I make the wise move, check in at Encore and crash for the night. The next day, I wake up feeling fresh. I get a quick workout in, followed by some stretching right before the poker session begins. I grab my gear, head out, and make my way to Aria, one of my favorite rooms in Las Vegas. Buying into the 2-5 game for $1,000, it's time to lock in and hopefully start this trip on the right note. So far in this session, there hasn't been too many eventful hands up until this one. I've definitely been the aggressor thus far, and I think the table is finally realizing, and maybe they're trying to make a move. You'll see what I mean. There's a under the gun straddle, there's a cutoff raise to 35. The button calls, I'm in the big blind with ace 10 offsuit. I make it 175. It folds back around to the button, and he goes all in for $1,000. What the heck is going on? I've been in Vegas for 45 minutes, and I'm already dealing with these bizarre situations. Against the population, this is literally the easiest fold in the world. However, I'm getting the feeling that this player is trying to capitalize on me maybe being a little bit too aggressive. If he had a hand like aces, kings, queens, jacks, maybe even tens, ace king, ace queen, he probably would have raised pre-flop. And this definitely is the player to do so because he has done it in previous hands. And the fact that he just smooth called the other player's initial raise and did it pretty quickly, I'm kind of discounting these hands. This almost always feels like a middling pocket pair that's trying to fold out a hand exactly like mine. And that's kind of what I'm pretty sure he has. So after about 3 minutes, this definitely isn't an easy decision. I decide, screw it. I'm gonna go with my read. I put in $1,000, the stack that I freshly bought in with ace 10 offsuit, and we're off to see 2 runouts. The first one doesn't look too good. However, we do river a little bit of showdown with a 10. So now we're beating those middling pairs like we talked about previously. The second runout doesn't look too good. It comes queen 9-9, king 6. And sure enough, we are going to be chopping against pocket 8s. So we profit a tiny bit of money on this hand. But yeah, our read on the situation was correct. And I gotta say, this player was pretty upset that I called it off with ace 10 offsuit. But hey, what can you do? I went with my read, and luckily this time it was correct. Alright, back to normal poker. In this one, we have 10-8 offsuit in the small blind. Not the best hand. There's 3 limps to me. I decide to complete. I call for 5, and the big blind checks. Probably not ideal, but we're going 5 ways to a flop, which comes down pretty dang good. It comes king, queen, jack, rainbow. So we're open-ended. I check, the player bets 15. There's 1 caller, and I don't think we have anything else to do other than call. The turn is amazing. The ace of diamonds giving us the nut straight. I think checking is once again the best play. I check it. A player to my left, an older gentleman, now bets $65. And this is just not the type that's going to be betting here with anything other than a straight, to simply put it. A player in late position calls to 65, and with the backdoor flush draw on the board, I think I could be raising this a lot of the time. But I also don't think it's a bad idea to underrep my hand and to maybe fold out some chops on the river. I don't know, maybe I'm doing the typical case scenario of fancy play syndrome, but that's what I decided to do. I just decided to smooth call, and sure enough, we see the deuce of diamonds on the river completing the backdoor flush. So sitting here with a straight, I think out of everyone, I'm probably the most likely one to have a flush. The initial aggressor, the player to my left, the older gentleman, he never has a flush. And sure, the other player I guess could, but I also think he could very well have 2 pairs or a straight himself. So I'm gonna bet, simply trying to fold out chops from other players. I don't know, now that I'm doing this voiceover, I feel like this is pretty ambitious, especially multi-way. But once again, who bluffs multi-way? I don't know. I'm overthinking it. I decide to bet $175. The player to my left, hems and haws, he's clearly frustrated and eventually lets it go. So now we only have to get through 1 more player. And once again, he goes into the tank. So now I'm pretty sure we're almost always chopping, so this feels like a complete free roll. He eventually does toss in the chips. I table my hand, once again expecting to get half the pot. But no, he has Jack 3 of diamonds. Yeah, I don't know what all the tanking was about. I don't know why he didn't raise my bet. All in all, this hand was pretty much a disaster. Is what it is. Live and learn. On to the next one. In this hand, under the gun straddle, once again, there is a raise in middle position to 30. A player in later position calls. I call with pocket fours on the button, and we go 3 ways to a flop, which comes down 10-7-4, all hearts. The initial aggressor continues for 60. The hijack folds him, and action is on me. I think calling is the best play here. Being in position, we can evaluate a lot of turns, and we can kind of pot control against flop flushes. Sure, I guess there's an argument against raising and targeting the ace of hearts, or maybe even like aces with a heart, kings with a heart. But yeah, this time I decide to just call, and we see the king of hearts on the turn. So not ideal. However, this time it goes check, check. We see the 6 of diamonds on the river. And now he bets 200. Seems kind of odd. I figured if he bet the ace of hearts, he would bet the turn. But yeah, at this point we just have a bluff catcher, and I'm pretty sure he's not bluffing. I decided to just let it go and try to find a better spot. This next one, we are back to playing mediocre hands. We have Jack Deuce of hearts in the big blind. There is a raise pre-flop. I honestly forget how much it is. And the button calls, and I decide to defend with a suited jack. So going 3 ways to a flop, where it comes 10-6 deuce with 1 heart. So having bottom pair with a backdoor flush draw, there could be worse flops. The initial aggressor, who is a very straightforward player, he's a solid player. I've actually played with him in Vegas before. And yeah, he never really gets out of line. He continues for 40. The button folds, and when action's on me, we just have pretty deep stacks, and I simply think the implied odds are too good to hit trips or even a jack to be folding here. And I don't know, maybe sometimes, very rarely, we can have the best hand against like ace king or ace queen. So I toss in the call, and we see an offsuit 3 on the turn. You could definitely make an argument that this card is better for me, and a lead is kind of interesting. However, this time I check, and the other player checks it back. So we're off to see a river, which is an offsuit 4, putting a 4-liner on the board. In hindsight, I don't mind a lead on this card. I think we're just going to have way more sets, 2 pairs straights, than our opponent. However, I check it, which I'm actually not that big of a fan of. And now he bets $125. Huh, interesting. This player, once again, he's a professionally, clearly knows what he's doing. And I think, once again, out of both of us, I am way more likely to have set straights, 2 pairs on this board. And I think he's just going for value with an overpair or a hand like top pair. Good kicker, and is just trying to target maybe worse tens, maybe even smaller pairs. I don't know. I'm just almost certain that is what he's targeting, and I'm pretty sure he does have a hand. With that being said, I think turning our hand into a bluff now makes a lot of sense, because we don't really have many bluffs as played. Besides, I guess, Jack Deuce of hearts. So I'm going to do something interesting. Against most players, or recreational players rather, I don't think this would work. I think I would just maybe let it go. But against a thinking player, I think min raising is kind of an interesting strategy. So once again, hardly would ever do this, and maybe I'm having another case of fancy play syndrome. But now I decide to min raise him to $250, exactly 2 times his bet. After about 2 minutes, our opponent folds. So our raise literally worked like a charm. And yeah, I'm almost certain that he did have a pretty strong hand that we got to fold. Let's go. All right, finally, we have a pretty good starting hand. We have ace queen offsuit under the gun. I make it 20. A new player sits down, later position, and he puts in another raise to 65. The small blind calls the 65 and action's back on me. Another raise isn't a bad idea with a decent amount of dead money in the middle, but this time I just call. The flop is 7-7-8 with 2 spades. Action checks to the initial aggressor, and he continues for $85. When it folds back to me, we're still ahead of straight draws, flush draws. I think ace king might check on this board a lot of the time, so I don't mind a float. I decide to peel one and we see an amazing turn. It is an offsuit queen. I check it, my opponent bets $150. And sure, I guess we could raise targeting some draws, but if he does have these bluffs, I think I want him to continue on the river, assuming that it does brick out. So I just call, and we see a 9 of diamonds on the river. I check it, my opponent checks it back, and shows pocket tens. Our queen is going to be winning, and yeah, we did need a little bit of help there on the flop, but hey, everyone gets lucky every once in a while. We're back with another premium, ace-king offsuit under the gun. I make it 20. A player to my left now raises to 65 and actually gets back to me. A fourth bet most of the time isn't a bad idea, but this time I decide to be sneaky and just make the call. The flop brings no help, unfortunately. It comes 10-3-4 rainbow. I check it and my opponent pretty quickly checks it back. The 5 of hearts brings a backdoor flush draw on the board. I check it once again, pretty happy to get the showdown, but now my opponent bets $100. Huh, interesting. I'd imagine he would bet the flop with an overpair almost always, or even a top pair. I don't think he's ever going to be 3-betting a hand like pocket fives. So with that being said, he's basically repping like maybe top set, or maybe he turned a flush draw. Maybe he has ace deuce, but once again, I think that would bet the flop. That being said, I decide to call, considering we don't have any hearts in our hand either, and we beat all bluffs. So in the river comes the 9 of spades. It's a pretty big brick. I check it, and now my opponent bets $300. Ugh, definitely not a comfortable spot to be in. Once again, all the hands that we just mentioned, we are still ahead of. King, queen, queen, jack of hearts, those kind of hands. I don't know. Maybe I'm just experiencing some fatigue, but this time I decide to make the hero call, figuring that it almost feels like top set or nothing. And sure enough, this time it is top set. He has pocket tens, and he gets a pretty good amount of money out of me with just ace high. Nice hand, on to the next one. Alright, hopefully we can get some money back with 6-9 suited. There's a under the gun limp. I raise to 25 on the button, the big blind, and the under the gun player call. So 3 ways to a flop, which comes amazing. Queen 9-6. When it checks to me, I think on this board, I'm pretty happy to bet big. I don't think a queen's folding, straight draw is not folding. I bet 50. Just the big blind calls, and we see the 6 of spades on the turn, giving us a full house. Let's go. When it checks to me, I don't want to be sizing up. I still want all of these straight draws, queen X to continue. So I bet 75, and I'm happy to see the big blind call once again. So praying for a clean river, and unfortunately it is not that good. It is the ace of diamonds. He checks it to me, and the reason that I'm not a big fan of this card is because if he had a queen, he's less likely to call a river bet now. On that same note, our hand is pretty strong, and maybe he is non-believing. I don't know. I'm just going to try to bet pretty big, and hopefully a queen calls, or maybe he has a random ace that arrives on the river. However, that seems pretty unlikely. I bet $225, and he pretty much snap folds. So unfortunate, but at least we got a little bit back. In this one, we see a under the gun raise to 15. The cutoff calls. I'm in the small blind with jacks. I make it 80, and we only see the cutoff player come along. So heads up to a flop out of position, which isn't horrible. It comes queen, deuce, 9, all hearts. Being out of position, I think the best play here is to check almost always. So I pump the brakes, and he bets 105. Pretty big bet. I don't think we can fold. However, if he has a hand like ace queen with the ace of hearts, king queen with the king of hearts, we are in pretty miserable shape. But against any other queen, or even like a flop smaller flush or a flop set, we're just not in that bad of shape. And hey, he might even just have the naked ace of hearts. So I call, and immediately we see another heart on the turn, the 3 of hearts. I check, and my opponent checks it back. So feeling a lot better about this situation. When the river's an offsuit 7, I'm just going to be targeting smaller flushes, or maybe even like a sticky set. I don't know. I bet 200, and my opponent quickly folds ace queen offsuit face up. So hey, happy to get there on the last hand of the night, and I hope you all enjoy the hands. It's time to cash out, hit the cage, and play another session later tonight. We were in the game for 1500 and ended up cashing out for 1860, so not the biggest win, but we'll definitely take it for the first session of the trip. Thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next one.